Hey, what's up everyone? Morey Croson here, and we have an exciting new video for today. It's going to be an in-depth look at our brand new Dari throwing analysis. I think this is a really cool new service that we're offering for everybody, and I've gotten a lot of new questions about it that just want to see, when they come in, what's the whole process, everything like that. So I thought I would go ahead and make a video to show you exactly what it looks like to go through the entire capture system, what the report looks like, and just give you as much information as I can about how the whole experience is when you actually go through the actual system. So we'll hop into a video right now to show you a little bit more about the actual capturing process. All right, now that you see the capturing process, now we'll take you through the actual report. This is going to be the information that we actually generate when going through the assessment. There's obviously more that we can go into when it comes to how we can do some compare and contrast stuff that I won't be able to show you just because I can't get the actual report to come up onto my Mac. You have to have like a special computer for it, but we'll go ahead and give you as much information as I can. You'll get plenty just from this. So first, this is going to be the first thing that you look like. You see that this is me throwing, and I went through a few different throws. So this is the fourth throw here, and we could really see when max trunk separation happens, when is the max external rotation and the max wrist velocity. Again, this would be something that you could see more in depth when going through it, just because you can see the actual moment there. But we could also see here when these all actually occurred as well, and what those numbers actually look like. So big thing that you get to look at here is we get to see things like the stride length, we get to see the overall trunk separation, we get to see things like your ability to create external rotation in the shoulder, what degrees that you're able to get to. You can see the angular velocities. We've got a lot of great information about the pelvic rotation velocity, the trunk rotation velocity, the internal rotation velocity, and the elbow extension velocity. We get to see the timing of when that all happened too. And so really get a lot of in-depth information to just look at and get more information from a compare and contrast perspective, just because for each one of these throws there's a big difference in things like how much rotation you're creating in the shoulder, how much elbow extension. So you can look a little bit more into why that happened, how that happened, and what we can gather from that information and kind of go from there. Okay, then when we go more in depth, this is going to be lower body biomechanics here. So this is just telling us the hip flexion of the lead leg and the trail leg. We're also seeing that one's just the hip flexion looks like. This one's ankle flexion and knee flexion. So essentially how much bending's happening in those joints is what that information is all about. Then we get the wrist velocity, how fast was the wrist actually moving, the angular velocities, and you can see how you have these big spikes. So this is basically, this is the time here going this way, and then this is the degrees here on this side. So just telling you how fast you're going through certain ranges of motion, certain degrees. So you can see a large spike in shoulder rotation velocity, which at the beginning we saw that was a high number as well. And so that just tells us that I'm using a lot of my shoulder when I'm actually throwing, to probably do a better job of using my lower body. Here's a trunk lateral flexion, so it just puts a degree of how much you're actually bending over the side as you're throwing. I know a lot of people have that as an issue. Trunk flexion, how far you're bending forward during your actual throw. Your rotational velocity, so we talked about this, or we saw this when you were throwing, the pelvic and the trunk, how much rotation is actually happening and when that's happening. So this gives us a timeline. So now we can see is your pelvis rotating before your trunk, which is going to give you better trunk separation. And so obviously for me, my trunk and my pelvis are rotating at the same time, and so that's an area to improve. My overall rotation through the trunk, my overall trunk separation altogether. Then we can also see when that exactly happened. We can see the shoulder horizontal adduction, which is basically your ability to kind of load, how far back you went. How high did you bring your shoulder up is the shoulder abduction during your loading phase. The shoulder rotation velocity, we've seen this already a couple times. This just gives us a better understanding of when exactly it happened, because now we can see the time frame. The shoulder external rotation, so did that happen? That should happen a little bit before your shoulder rotation velocity, right? In order to generate a lot of force, you got to be able to get a lot of external rotation. We talk about that in our deep throw videos. Again, we got wrist velocity here, we got elbow extension velocity here. So you get so much information, elbow extent, elbow flexion here. So all these reports are things that we look at, and then we can compare that to your actual throw, which you saw in the capture, so we can actually go through the time frame of you throwing and get a great understanding of, okay, this exact moment is when you were at external rotation in the shoulder, and maybe a lot of trunk lateral flexion, or when you created this amount of force in your pelvis, and again, your trunk was leaning over to your side, or your elbow was really low. So it gives us an understanding of, from a biomechanical standpoint, what are some of the things that you're doing correctly in your throw, and then what are some of the things that you can improve within your throw. And if you have any injury risks, if you're having any problems with your throwing mechanics, this is a hugely recommended service, just because it gives you so much detail about your throw, and it all takes a matter of just a few minutes. We get all this information within about a 5 to 10 minute period, and then we spend most of the session actually diagnosing it and getting a better understanding of how to fix it. And then you'll go and do it again, and you'll do it again. So then we can actually take the information within one session. You'll see from a actual quantitative, a number perspective, how much improvement that you've been able to make within an individual session. All right. So if you like the content, first I'd say go ahead and subscribe to the channel. We put a lot of great content out here for quarterbacks to really help them out in their overall ability to throw the ball further, more accurately, improve their release. We just have a lot of workouts, just a lot of things for quarterbacks in general. And if you're interested in doing this actual service, I'd say go ahead and reach out. We have some contact information down below, and we'd love to talk to you more about what we do and how we can help you out in the future. All right, we'll talk to you soon.